It's one thing to have two successful siblings in Hollywood, but when there's only one sibling that succeeds and outshines the other one, it can cause more than just a little bad blood. You might not know this, but Julia Roberts had a brother. Yep, his name is Eric Roberts. He's earned himself almost 500 IMDb credits, and yet some people still have no idea who he is. When it comes to his relationship with his sister, well, it's safe to say that Julia is not her brother's biggest fan. Why? Well, let's just say it involved a few stints with the law and some bad habits. Don't forget to subscribe to Rumour Juice and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when we upload new content you'll love. It's impossible to keep your dirty laundry out of the public eye when you're a celebrity. The Roberts family had to learn that the hard way, when Julia had a nasty fallout with her brother. And like most celebrity clashes, it was all a matter of the heart.
Maybe you like me. I don't like you.
Back in the early 90s, Julia sided with Eric's ex-girlfriend in a custody battle over niece Emma Roberts. There's no doubt that fans were shocked to hear that Julia hadn't sided with her brother during the custody battle. You would think that family would stick together in messy situations like this. However, when it came to Julia, her niece was the one she was sticking up for. So what happened between the siblings that caused Julia to abandon her brother's side? At the time, tabloid headlines were ablaze with Eric Roberts' ugly split from his then-girlfriend and Emma's mother, Kelly Cunningham. While suing Roberts for custody of their only child together, Cunningham reportedly got assistance from Julia Roberts. It was a move that apparently served as a final straw in the brother and sister's already strained relationship. Eric felt betrayed that his sister would have taken his ex's side over his own. Eric had claimed in an interview that he and Julia were actually quite close growing up. However, the trio was split up when their parents got divorced. Julia and their sister Lisa moved in with their mom, while Eric moved to Atlanta with his father. Years later, the siblings reconnected when Julia moved to New York to find work as an actress. At the time, Eric was already making a name for himself as an up-and-coming actor. With her brother's help, Julia signed with her first agent and quickly began her rise to fame. In fact, Eric credits his sister's success to himself, saying, "If it wasn't for me, there would be no Julia Roberts and no Emma Roberts as celebrities, as actresses, and I'm very proud of that."
She's great, you know, and she's so lovable on screen. You know, you can't dispute that. So I have a great time. I mean, I'm as proud of my sister as you can get.
Julia went on to star in the romantic classic Pretty Woman, and Eric became an Academy Award-nominated actor. However, while Julia's stock continued to climb, Eric's career stagnated.
All those rumors about us not getting along all happened because I got her started in show business, right? So then she gets Pretty Woman and becomes the biggest star in the world. And the press was still, you know, talking to her like Eric's little sister. And one day she got sick of it and said, "I don't want to hear his name anymore." So I said, "Ooh, there must be a problem."
So, while his sister's career was soaring above the clouds and she became Hollywood's sweetheart, Eric's title of an up-and-coming actor slowly changed to Julia Roberts' brother. Eric Roberts opened up about his rocky relationship with his sisters, Julia and Lisa Roberts. "They were precious to me, and we had times of great closeness."
You were close with her the whole time.
All I know is what I hear from other people. And like what I read a quote from my mother said I wasn't invited to the wedding because I might make trouble.
However, he admitted that his addiction to drugs started to take its toll on his relationship with his family. He confessed that he was exhausting for others to be around, and he alienated his family. Eric also revealed that his drug use might have affected his career. "I would go to meetings with people that mattered, and I would go stoned."
And also, when I got into movies, they would send you to the prop truck would be lines of cocaine. And everybody from the executive and producer to craft service was high on that drug. Everybody was wrecked on a movie set. It was out of control, and I was a kid.
He would constantly complain, blame others for his lack of success, and he was unable to enjoy himself in the moment. It seemed that Eric's downward spiral was tough for those close to him, and they needed to take a step back. Julia was one of those people. Eric did his best to turn his life around and get back on the right track. Over the years, he worked to overcome his addictions before landing on celebrity rehab in 2010. His time with Dr. Drew seemingly did the trick. Some of the best shows he's done since Celebrity Rehab, Eric's wife Eliza told Vanity Fair. Following his recovery from his addiction and living a life of sobriety, Eric was able to look back at his mistakes. He took all of the blame for the fractured family relations, saying he brought both of his younger sisters into a drug addict's life, and that they just grew tired of it, and decided I was more trouble than I was worth. It wasn't just his family that he had hurt during his downward spiral. The actor had a couple of altercations with the law, along with allegations of physical abuse against his wife, that could have also been the reason his career was stunted. Back in 1985, Roberts opened up to people about the traumatic 1981 car accident that left him in a coma for 3 days and in the hospital for a month. The story he told back then was that he was driving a doorless Jeep with his girlfriend's dog in the passenger seat. When the dog leaned out too far, he reached for it by letting go of the wheel and slammed into a tree. Decades later, however, Roberts admitted that he hadn't told the full story. An important detail he'd left out was that he was high on cocaine at the time. The rehabilitation following the accident was also incredibly difficult. The actor told Vanity Fair he had to learn how to walk again and talk again. But this wasn't the only time Roberts' substance abuse introduced violence into his life, and the lives of others close to him.
You're told by all the other cokeheads, it's not addictive, you're fine. But then when you're buying it from your dealer and you're doing it in the elevator from his floor to the lobby, and you realize, I might have a problem here.
It could be.
In 1987, he was arrested for drug possession, harassing a woman, and assaulting a cop as a result of an incident in which he was intoxicated. In another incident, the cops had found Eric banging on the door at the home of a woman that he'd met at a party a year before. The woman had been so frightened that she had called the police to get him away from her home. The arresting officers also claimed Roberts threw a punch at one of them but missed and hit another policeman in the shoulder while they were taking him into custody. Unfortunately, this wasn't the actor's last altercation with the law. 8 years later, Eric was arrested yet again in connection with violence against a woman. This time, it was his wife, Eliza, who called 911 after an argument. Police told the New York Daily News that Roberts had pushed the victim, causing her to hit her head against the wall. But both he and his wife later denied any physical abuse. Taking a look back at the actor's reputation of violent behavior, it makes sense as to why Julia would have taken the side of his ex, Kelly Cunningham, during their custody battle. The actress knew that her brother wasn't fit to be a father and hadn't dealt with his drug addiction. So, she did what was best for her niece Emma and took her mother's side.
When you stop the addiction, you haven't stopped what causes the addiction. So you have to understand that about yourself, that you're not well because you're not using. You had a problem which forced you to start using.
Perhaps it was what Eric needed to understand that he needed his life to change in order for him to have a relationship with his daughter. His addiction had already derailed his career. He knew he needed to get sober in order to get his family back, and that's exactly what he did. While he and his daughter Emma don't have the closest relationship, he is incredibly proud of what she's achieved as an actress. However, it might surprise you to know that he doesn't really speak to his daughter about acting. In December of 2020, the actor's life was changed once again when he became a grandfather. Emma and her boyfriend Garrett Hedlund welcomed their first child together, a beautiful baby boy named Rhodes Robert Hedlund. Eric could not have been more excited about the news and has embraced his new role as a grandfather very happily. As for his relationship with Julia, it turns out that the sibling bond was strong enough to facilitate a reconciliation. The siblings were able to put the past behind them when Julia gave birth to twins in 2004. Eric told Vanity Fair that when he visited Julia in the hospital, he was ushered into their room and was immediately awash in brotherly and unclely love. These days, the siblings spend holidays together and are email buddies per the outlet. While it wasn't an easy journey to recovery, Eric did what he needed to do to mend the rift that his addiction had caused between his loved ones. For now, the siblings may just be email buddies, but that is one step further from where they were before. It seems the actors were able to put the past behind them and move on from the chaos. We only hope that their family continues to grow closer.